relevance of DFMA in automobile industry. I briefly introduce Mr. Butt. He completed his graduation from Automobile Engineering Department from ADIT. Then after he completed his PG in Automotive Engineering from MS Ramaiah School of Advanced Study from Bangalore. He also completed his MBA in Quality Management from Sikkim Manipal University. Initially, he joined in R&D department of one of the MNC named as Boss Limited at Bangalore, and there his work that is related to reliability, testing and development of diesel engine fuel injection system, and he also work on various other components at Bosch Limited. Then after he joined Hero Motocom as a quality engineer. Presently is working in supplier quality assurance department of electrical and electronics commodity at Hero Motocom, Baroda. He has more than 10 years of experience in the field of product development, testing, and customer quality. Now, not taking too much time, I request Mr. Meet Butt to start his presentation on relevance of DFMA in the field of automotive industry. Sir, please go ahead with your presentation.
Thank you, Nipun sir, for your introduction. And good morning, everyone, Sanjay sir, and all the friends. So I really appreciate student coming on Sunday to learn something new, and I hope I can meet up to the expectation. So I'm starting the topic for discussion today. So as Nikun sir said, the topic is relevance of DFMA, sorry, in automotive industry. And just to start the session, I am putting this thought forward by a famous personality, that is Albert Einstein. The best design is the simplest one that works. So this is giving one hint for the today's topic, that always it is not necessary that complex or good things are always complex. There it is possible that good product can be also simple. So this is a table of contents. So first of all, I would like to clear that many of you would be confused with DFMA, confusing it with DFMEA. FMEA is failure mode and effect analysis, and DFMEA is design failure mode and effect analysis. But this DFMA is nothing but design for manufacturing and assembly, and it is a separate topic. So this is just to clarify. After knowing about DFMA, we will see the methodology. Then we will separately discuss about DFA and DFM. Then we will see what are the differences and similarities between DFA and DFM. Principle of DFMA, why we should use DFMA, or benefits. Then how to evaluate any part using DFMA. So it has three subcomponent: functional analysis, handling analysis, assembly analysis, and application of DFMA in automotive industry. So before starting this session, I will also like to tell that maybe some of you must be knowing about this topic, and so if they are knowing, it is good that they can also share their information. And I am sharing as I am aware of this topic. Yes. And second thing is, if there are any query, it can be asked if there is any doubt during the session, during that particular topic, or at the end of the session. If I'm able to clear the query immediately, I will do it. Otherwise, I will revert back to you. I will just switch off my camera to improve. Okay, so now starting with what is DFMA. DFMA is one thing. My screen is visible.
No, Meet, no.
Oh,
No.
sorry. I forgot.
Please go for present now.
Yes, yes. I forgot to share my screen. Thank you.
Now it is visible.
Yeah.
Now
Sorry.
it is fine. Please go ahead.
So this is the quote: "Best design is the simplest one that works." And second thing is the table of contents, what we have just spoke about. Now coming to what is DFMA. So when any organization or any company or any supplier or any OEM as such is designing any product, a part or assembly, what is considered is what are the customer requirements. Customer requirements are based on the function. So if we want to sell a bike, for example, so the company will decide what is the function of the bike, then what cost it want to sell in which market, like which segment. For example, if we want to be in a mass segment, then we cannot keep the cost of bike like 1 lakh. We have to keep the bike in an entry level price, that is around 50 to 60,000. And we have to understand that people are going to use it for regular commuting purpose, not for a long drive as such. And the most important thing is how easy it will be to manufacture or assemble it. One can design a very good product, but it may be very difficult to manufacture it or assemble, or very much costly. So overall, the product should be a balance between the function, its cost, and its manufacturing feasibility. If all three are balanced, then the product will definitely meet the customer requirement and it will be successful. So design for manufacturing and assembly is a methodology which will help any organization or any team or any function to effectively design a product and efficiently manufacture it with minimum what we say effort, time, and cost. And it can be used for any new product development, as well as if we want to simplify something, because nowadays there is a huge pressure on all the companies, whether they are supplier or OEM, to keep the cost competitive. So let us say we cannot control the raw material cost. So we have to optimize in our processes and in our design so that customer gets the product at an affordable price. And the analysis is best utilized in a design phase, when only the design is like draft and it is not finalized, and the blueprint of the production is prepared. Why this is? Because as you must be aware that any product, when it is going, let us say it is in design phase, the price to change anything is 1x. When it goes to production, it becomes 10x. If it goes to market, if you want to change anything, it becomes 100x. So this is the standard principle why people say that if we wish to optimize something, do it from the design stage. Because once it goes into manufacturing, there are many factors like tooling, fixtures, then setup, change. And once it goes to market, it is like 100 times more difficult to change anything, because we have to see also many other factors which are externally influenced, like customer perception, all the things. So better to use this concept in the design phase itself. And regarding, okay, this DFMA use will also ensure that when any product is going from the design phase to production phase, it is smooth and rapidly transiting. This is because many a times it happens that development team designs a very good product, but there are a lot of issues in manufacturing or producing it, and then overall the organization is not able to release the product on time. So this is why DFMEA helps to bring the product as soon as possible to production phase and then to market. So now coming to DFMA methodology. The DFMA methodology is applied as follows. We have a design concept available for a part of product. We then go for the design for assembly. And in the design for assembly, if there are suggestions coming out for the simplification of the product with respect to its assembly, then the input are again taken and then it is again implemented in the design concept. Once the DFA stage is done, selection of material and process and the cost estimate for the manufacturing is done in this phase. Now, as you must be knowing that whenever any customer or like any party who is buying the product, he will ask what will be the price of the product. So whenever any company is making a product, the company has to also finalize their processes, because what material the product will require, what processes it will be using, that will be highly impacting the cost of the product. So while considering the cost of the product, the company has to see what it will cost for the design, what it will cost for the development, productionization, and also the profit margin definitely. So all these things, DFM and DFMA is used to estimate the cost of production and assembly. So after the material is selected and the process are almost finalized, the best design concept which will have most economical and most feasible and less time consuming, it will be going further. Then the design for manufacture DFM is taken. How we can make the product in the what we say minimum manufacturing cost. This is like selecting the best process which will give the quality also, it will meet the customer requirement also, and it will also be not too much costly, because everything is finally coming up to cost. If you are not meeting the cost requirement of the customer, there are many other competitors in the market now. Our market is no more a monopolistic market. So finally then going to prototype and production. So as you can see, the DFMA concept is utilized between the design concept and between the prototype. So the ideal stage is that you are applying DFMA in the design phase, so that later the cost to modify everything is minimum. So now splitting our subject topic into two phases, like one is the design for assembly and another one is the design for manufacturing. So design for assembly is the method of designing the product for ease of assembly. So while designing any product, on one side you have to keep the customer requirement into mind. On the other side, you have to also see how easy it will be for your organization to assemble it. As I said earlier, you can design a very good product, but it is very difficult to assemble. And even if it is assembling, it will have a lot of cycle time, it will have a lot of chances of error. So you have to optimize on the assembly front also. DFA tool is used to assist the design team in the design of product that will shift to production at a minimum cost, focusing on the number of parts, handling, and ease of assembly. So when we are talking of assembly, when you go in any organization, they are speaking regarding the cycle time. How much is the cycle time? How much part it can produce within one shift? So this is one thing which is to be kept in mind while designing a product, which is taken care by DFA, and how the handling how easy would be the handling and how easy would be the assembly. And this will go a significant input for the design for manufacture. So together, this both DFA and DFM is called DFMA. So the objective of DFA is to simplify the product structure. And why we do this? Because how many child part the product is having is a key factor in deciding the cost and also the quality. You must be aware that as the number of part increases, the complexity of the product will increase, the price of the product will definitely increase, and the what we say, the assembly will also be like happening in more stages. If there are 4 components, maybe it will get assembled in 4 stages, but if there are 10 components, maybe it will take 8 or 9 stages to get assembled. So definitely it is affecting cost, cycle time, everything. And this can be utilized both in manual as well as automated assembly. Like many small organizations still uses manual assembly process in India, and maybe in Western countries the process are more automated because the manpower is cheap here in India. So we are still going for manual process because all this in final is the cost. Next coming is the design for manufacturing. So DFM is a method of design to simplify the manufacturing of the child parts which will form the product after assembly. So once you have decided, okay, I will need 5 child part, this will be the design, then you are thinking how you will manufacture it. Whether you'll go for a costly material, whether you'll go with a material which is just meeting the requirements, or which one. And second thing is that which process you are going to, whether you will have a fully automated process or whether you will have like a semi-automatic or manual process. And basically this will define the cost of manufacturing, how the process will be and how the material will be. The broad objectives of DFM are shorten the product development cycle time, because since you're considering the manufacturing initially itself, so whatever failure modes or difficulties are there, you will anticipate. Then since you are also worried about simplicity or the reducing complexity, so it will definitely help the manufacturing team. Then, as I said, to estimate how much the cost of raw material and the process would be, and if you are reducing the number of component or number of stations, then it will also reduce the production cost. Now coming between the similarities and differences between DFA and DFM. So basically these together are called DFMA, but just to have clarity, DFM and DFA both seek to reduce material overhead and labor cost. So this is totally, as the name itself is suggesting, you are thinking, design thinking is towards the manufacturing and assembly of the product. So it is totally like the benefit of the organization who is manufacturing itself. Look, the customer is only paying for the product. He's not bothered how much it will cost to you or how much overhead you will need. One organization can make a product with more overhead. Let us say one part is one he is making with the organization one is making with 100 manpower, and organization 2 is making the same product with 80 manpower. So definitely this 20 manpower cost saving is going to increase his margin, the supplier who is making the product, and in turn he may also give a competitive price to the customer. So the customer is also definitely going to go towards the one who is giving the lower price and a competitive one. Then second thing is they reduce the product development cycle time. This is because it is a concurrent engineering fundamental. Concurrent engineering means when you are designing the product, you are also parallelly thinking for the next phase of the product development, that is the manufacturing phase. So when these are considered simultaneously, they will definitely reduce the development cycle time, and the customer is also going to go with the supplier who is giving the product in a shorter span of time, because In this competitive market, everyone wants to launch their product in a short time. Who is first in the market, they will gain the market share. Like for example, BS6, everyone wanted to launch motorcycle which is having the like first fuel injection technology or first BS6. So even before the launch of BS6 norm officially in India, that is April, many OEMs started from January, February. Okay, first model launch in BS6 category. So they want to showcase that they are first in the market to launch a new product. Differences between DFA and DFM is that DFA is considered only with reducing the product assembly cost. So one is focused on the assembly operations, and the DFM is considered with the reducing overall production part cost. So what material you are selecting, what process you are using to manufacture them. So this there are two type of thing in manufacturing. One thing is you are making the product by your own in-house, or you are making or buying the product from outside, outsource. We call it a bought out part. So the company can choose whether they will buy the product completely or they will buy a semi-finished product. So one more category which is introduced in the terminology is bought out semi-finished. So what operation methodology or what processes they are going to use in the manufacturing of this child part, that is the important criteria which DFM is addressing. Okay, so basically now we are coming to the main part of DFMA. But just before we go further, I want to ask whether everyone is able to follow. The pace is okay for the presentation?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are you able to relate what I am telling?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. So if you feel that I need to slow or it is too much slow, then you can tell me. Okay. So I feel that the content is very much simplified manner to understand. Even the principle which are mentioned here, there are total 11 principles or guidelines with the DFM is telling. They are explained using a very simple example, just to have the ease of understanding of the methodology. But when we are applying this in our engineering application like automotive, then the product can be complex, but the methodology will remain same. So let us go into these 11 principles. Maybe because they are simple, I will go little fast so that we are in line with our timeline of the session. So this first guideline is telling minimize the part count. So as you can see in the picture, you can have a product which is same product as per the customer requirement, but one is made using 11 pieces and one is made using 3 pieces. So definitely from reliability point of view, from cost point of view, from ease of operation and assembly point of view, anyone would like to prefer with the 3 pieces. So now the difference in the organization or any supplier is that whether one supplier is able to make the part in the less number of pieces and one supplier is able to make in a high number of sub-assembly child part. So basically when there are high part, there will be more wear and tear, there will be more assembly and manufacturing cost, everything. So this is the guideline. The final cost of product is directly proportional to number of part. As the number of part is reduced, the product quality and reliability typically increase. This is very basic fundamental. When we are using less part, it will means less purchases from outside suppliers. Like we want to purchase more fasteners, we want to purchase this one washer, etc. All these things. So definitely, it is reducing complete supply chain activities, handling, processing time, development time, and more failure mode. For example, you have to look for the failure mode of 11 pieces. So one supplier will not give okay bolt, one supplier will not give okay base plate, all that things. When we are using only 3 pieces, we have to worry only about the 3-part quality. So simple test to decide how a part is required or not. Three questions can be asked. Should the part move relative to other part in performing its function? So one clear indicator is that if the part is moving, then definitely it is doing some function. As we all know in our part, like crankshaft is a part which is moving, so we cannot eliminate a crankshaft. So this is the basic fundamental we have to apply. If the part is moving and it is transmitting some motion, then definitely it is doing some work which is required for the function. If we eliminate this thing, it will not able to work. Should the part be made of different material? Is it possible to like standardize the material of this particular part? And is it required that this part can be separate component or can it be merged? So many times we are seeing that suppliers are now integrating the functionality of different components. This we are seeing. So even the customer is happy that okay, earlier two part were giving two functionality, now one part is giving one functionality. If the answer to all about this question is no, there is a possibility of combining the part with the other part, and it can be considered during the design phase. So basically, this is a flow chart in detail, like how to identify essential part. So starting with, does the part move relative to all part which have been analyzed? Yes. Is the movement essential? Yes. Must the part be separate? Yes. Then it is a category part. We will go further between the A category and B category part in the coming slide. And when you go no, so then again question is asked, is this part of a different material? Already analyzed, is the part separate? So when it is a no answer, then definitely it is a B part, non-essential part. So this is the methodology to decide which are the essential part and non-essential part. Then second guideline, same guideline, it is also saying that avoid separate fasteners. Fasteners are many a time, let us say small part, but they are increasing the cost, the number of parts, and definitely whenever we are using something to tighten, then we are introducing number of failure mode like thread wash or loose bolt. So all these things are adding to the failure modes only, and definitely we have to put one more station to do fastener assembly. So the fastener increases the cost of manufacturing and handling and feeding operations. So all these are additional things which are associated. Besides the high cost of equipment required for them, operation are not 100% successful. So as I said, there are challenges of ensuring that the torque is sufficient or not, whether it is tightened, whether a bolt is missed or what, fastener is not assembled. So better if you are, if any organization is having a possibility to eliminate fasteners, they can do it. How they can do it is that shown in the photo. There is a different options: snap fit, plastic bending, riveting, screwing. So as you are going higher on this side, cost is increasing, complexity is increasing. So the guideline to this is select the most inexpensive fastening method. The left side photo is definitely more expensive and more complex compared to a snap fit thing in the right side. It is also convenient for the user. So second guideline is saying that make parts multifunctional. So if you are having 5 parts and these 5 parts are doing multiple functionality, then the design is good. Okay. So this is a very like general what I said. So multifunctional part reduce the total number of parts in design, combine several functions. And the best example, apart from what is shown here, Swiss knife is a mobile phone. Earlier we used to carry one Walkman, let us say one camera and one mobile. Now one mobile is capable of doing the camera function, the music function, everything is there. So definitely the other things are now eliminated, which is like no need to maintain them, no need to buy them, all these things. So what you're saying is in manufacturing different products can share the part can you design for multi-use. these parts can have same or different function. So this is saying that like if you are having multiple models of any product, if you are having a multifunctional part, they can be used in different models. That is also called platform sharing. So in automobile also you are seeing like that there is a platform sharing. OEMs make some chassis, and the chassis is used in many vehicles. So this is one kind of multifunctional, rather than going for separate chassis for separate vehicle. So these are all the techniques which the OEMs use to reduce the cost and complexity. Third guideline is saying design the part to be self-aligning and self-locating. So all these things seem to be very small, but actually when you are going into the production environment, I have seen myself that all these things are a very big matter, because the person who are working on the line are not educated as us, and neither they are given so much time that they can do the work with ease or relaxing environment. There is a high pressure of quantity in the given cycle time, and this simple thing will help to increase the productivity definitely. As you can see in the photo, one photo, the spring is not able to put in the proper way, and the second they have just provided one chamfer, and automatically when he plays the spring it will go and sit here. Second thing also, you can see the part when he is placing, there are chances that it will not go. But when he is designing the product in such a way that there are no chance to go inside, then it will definitely go and sit properly inside the desired location. Then a third example is holding down an alignment. Holding down an alignment required for operation. So when you are giving a groove, so it is automatically sitting coaxially. So all these things I have seen myself operator who are not too much educated, they are complaining always. And really also it is a thing which is to be considered, because this thing will highly affect the cycle time, and it can also save one station if you are designing something like easy assembly, self-aligning. Now stack assembly. So this is the thing which is saying that all parts should be assembled in one direction, and the best method is to go for stack assembly, so that everything is locating in its place by the virtue of gravity itself. Okay, so apart from like holding something in the direction opposite to gravity, where person has to hold or you need to have vacuum, if you are doing everything in a vertical downward direction, then everything will get assembled in its place by the virtue of gravity. So this is one simple thing where you can avoid a vacuum machine to hold the part, or a person holding by his hand. So these are simple technique, and it should not be part should not be required to be oriented again and again, or careful orientation. It should be easily able to locate in the assembly. Fifth guideline is saying that ensure the ease of handling of part from bulk. So this is again like parts are kept in different stations of the assembly process. Operator will pick the part, and as seen in the photo, when there are a number of parts kept in the bin, like in the quantity of hundreds, so there are possibility that tangling will happen in the spring. So this simple design thing will ensure that it will not tangle. On the bottom, it is telling that okay, when there are something which can get fixed or locked, so you can increase the angle so that it will not lock it completely. It can be easily removed. So these are the basically parameters like stickiness. If the part is sticky or something, then operator will take some time to clean his hand. Or if the part is slippery, it will fall down. Then this will lead to missing component. How flexible the part is, like can it be taken easily and put, or how fragile it is. So fragile component, as you know, need to be taken high care. We have to give special guideline trained operators. How heavy the part is. If the part is heavy, maybe the station will require two operators. If the part is too thick, then it cannot be single-handed operation. When you go into production, there are many things like uh, production sequence or hand sequence. So he is not only required to do one job per person. At least there will be 2 to 3 jobs. So all these parameters, if they are not optimum, it will definitely lead to operator fatigue, high cycle time, etc. So this flexibility example is that if you can hold something easily and it is flexible, it will not get damaged, then it will be helpful to operator. The sixth guideline is say eliminate interface. So as you know, interface is nothing but a failure mode, and reliability point of view, we always say that these are the weakest point for failure. The more and more joint or interface are there, and if the stress is increasing in this area, definitely the failure will start from this point. And number of interface will definitely have more number of station, more processes, more POCA, etc. And you have to control the quality, as I said earlier. One part is coming from one supplier, another part is coming from another supplier. So you have to control 2 dimension, 2 tolerances, then 2 person, one bringing one part from store, another bringing another part, material cost, everything. Best is to integrate. So you can see the top photo is 2 parts, and the bottom photo same functionality integrated in one part. So this is a very simple example, but same can be applied in any automotive application. And the seventh guideline is saying design parts which cannot be installed incorrectly. So the statement is like this. Now I have seen many times the part like one-way wall. If it is there are pipe on both the side. If it is assembled in the reverse way, the functionality will not be met. Many a times it happens that our process cannot be detecting, like let us say purge wall. It is difficult to detect that application, yeah, maybe to check that functionality at our end. So what will happen? It will go further to customer and it will lead to complaint during the operation. So there are some failure which can be detected, some failure which cannot be detected. So best thing is to do is design in such a way that there will be no wrong possibility, mounting possibility. So you can see the plate which has to be assembled. One is having hole of smaller dia, other having hole of higher dia. This is the best method to avoid assembly mistake, because unless it is a robot, there will be errors in assembly. And one big problem in production is the changing manpower. So you have to ensure that the design are good enough. Any new person who is coming, it doesn't make a mistake. Eighth guideline is saying maximize the part symmetry possible or make parts obviously asymmetrical. These are the two options. Left side, what is telling is there is a cylindrical shaft where there is a chamfer on one side. So when there is something given on one side, that means it has to be mounted on that particular side, orientation need to be matched and other things. But when the design is that it is symmetrical, then you don't have any concern to mount it upside down or otherwise. So that means operator need not worry if he mount other way. But if it is one side, every time he has to see. All this is leading to high cycle time, skilled manpower. Then the second thing is that if it has to be asymmetrical, why? So many times there are something which has to be matched. I see in my day-to-day working that some parts need matching with other parts. So if you are having like a disc as shown here, there are 4 holes, but always you have to match one hole with another one where you are assembling. It is there are high chances that it will be wrong, assembled in a wrong manner. So when you are using a disk with a flat side, there will be no chances because it will not be able to mount other way. The design of opposite part will be such a way that it cannot be assembled. So you are eliminating the possibility. In quality, they always say eliminate the things at the occurrence, not at the detection. So ninth guideline is saying use standard parts and hardware. So what it means to say is, don't go for something which is too much like unique. Go for standard catalog parts, because when something is standard, you will easily have a contingency plan. Like for example, one supplier suddenly stops the operation, and you are having a part which is too much unique. Okay, so you will suffer on the production because no other supplier can make it. Other thing is that if you are having different variant, and if you are having different part for different variant, then what will happen is there are chances of mix up. Okay, then if you are in standard part, the lead time for this will be less, because the suppliers, if there are four suppliers, four can make parts in the same, and any part can be used in any model, and the number of tools required for them will be less because the part are same. So the fixtures and all the things will be required will be standard. So while designing, the designer should keep in mind like part list, standard part. Wherever possible, they should go for the standard part. And for standardization, there has to be a good communication between the design team, because each one have their own objective. So if they are communicating well, things can be standardized. And standardization is a big problem everywhere: design, manufacturing, any company. Now coming to 10 guidelines: simplify and optimize the manufacturing process. So it is telling that the product should use a good combination of the material and the process to use uh, to optimize the overall manufacturing cost. That means if we are selecting a material which requires particular specific kind of manufacturing process, then you are going in the way of increasing the manufacturing cost or product cost. And wherever possible, try to avoid specialized operation like painting, polishing, finish machining. Of course, if the product requires it and it cannot be avoided, then there's no option. But as far as possible, go with alternative method which are not costly. Then excessive tolerance surface finish requirement are commonly found problem in higher, result in higher than necessary. So we have to give very close tolerance. Many times the tolerances are not properly defined, which leads to issue in manufacturing. The supplier will give some tolerance, our product will have some tolerance, both will go in extreme end, and then finally there will be issue. So surface finish requirement are not properly defined. All these things has to be clearly defined, and it has to be in line with the manufacturing process. So the process as we are discussing, it has to be simplified and optimum to reduce the recurring and direct and overhead cost. Like you are having more fixtures, it will require the more wear and tear, more PMI, more persons. So this has to be optimized from the start itself. Anything what you do from the start will give the best result rather than doing in between. So we have to use the process which are easily controllable, and there are some specialized process like welding, brazing has to be avoided, just because many companies have good processes, but they are not able to control, because any process is having issues like breakdown or something going out of spec. So that is like going into, once we set up a complicated process, we have to set complicated systems to control it. So all the things to be avoided. Now encouraging modular assembly. So this is one example where they are telling that any product, it should be a modular assembly. That means if any child part or sub component is faulty, you should be able to replace that component in the assembly, and the product should work fine. Or let us say you made a product on the end of assembly and you find one defect. So it should be such that the product can be repairable by replacing that particular component rather than scrapping the product, because the product is a single unit. So one example in our today's life is mobile phone. The batteries are integrated in the mobile phone. Hence now if an issue in battery, you cannot use the mobile. So this is one thing which is like a disadvantage. of not having modular thing. Earlier we had a mobile having battery which can be removed, so we could easily replace them. Now, quickly going through this, why use DFMEA benefits. So when we are using DFMA, it encourages designers and the manufacturing engineers. So the big gap in today's time, especially in countries like India, there is a big difference of opinion between the development and the production team. I have worked in both environment, in development and manufacturing. So development people have a mindset that production or manufacturing team are not able to understand our thing or able to do. Manufacturing team have a perception that the development team are designing something which is difficult to manufacture, how they are not thinking the feasibility. So when you're using a DFMA tool, you are also considering like you're getting input from the manufacturing team, what can be your problems, and you are implementing in design. So definitely there will be more synergy. As we seen earlier, shorter time to market, because the product developed is already considered the manufacturing feasibility and ease of operation. Organization will be quickly able to go through the production and then launch. Lower assembly cost and time, reliability increases. So while you're targeting for the cost and the time and the this one, the product reliability is also increasing because number of parts are reduced, product process is simple, and so one more important reason why DFMA should be used is that now the companies are telling that whatever cost of the product is there, please declare during the development. It is not that one company asks for a product for rupees 100, and earlier the supplier told, okay, I can give in 100, but as soon as they went for the production, they found that the production cost is high and we have to give the product at 150 rupees. So they wasted time, and finally the customer told cannot be like 150 rupees is not feasible. So loss for both supplier and customer. So now I think because of time, I have to go quickly. There are some parts, important part which are. Nikun sir, is it possible to extend some time? Uh, like half an hour or 20 to 30 minutes?
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Huh.
Hi, you can.
Okay. Okay. I hope it is interesting for everyone to know further. So DFMA evaluation is focusing on three aspects. One is functional analysis, one is the handling analysis, and third one is the assembly analysis. So as we seen earlier, the process flow chart during the product design, once the design is finished, then the functional analysis is done, manufacturing analysis, including the handling and the feeding, and the assembly analysis, which include gripping, insertion. So this is the DFMA portion. Once the DFMA portion is thoroughly done, then the optimized design is released. Now coming to the calculation part, this methodology, I find it good because it is objective. It is not just theory. When you are taking any product or any part, you are objectively telling what is the efficiency of this part with respect to manufacturing and assembly. So I feel whenever something there is objective evaluation, it is always good rather than just telling the part is average or good or best. So functional analysis, we are examining the functional requirement of the product. Then we are deciding whether the product can be considered as a whole or a child part. Stage 3, this is the most important part for the functional analysis. As I said earlier, essential and non-essential part. So A type component are one which are essential or required necessary to carry out the performance, and B category is the one which is not necessary or which is not directly giving any output, like the fastener, spacer, etc. So it is guided that any design should be 60% efficient. We know any design or any product cannot be 100% efficient. And if the product is complex, then at least it is expected that the product will have 30% more, 30% design efficiency or functional efficiency. So this photo we have discussed earlier. I am not going in detail. It is just a question which we have to put forth for the sub-assembly of the part. Whether this part is moving, whether this part has to be different material, whether this part has to be separate to decide whether it is essential, non-essential, or essential. So we have to go through this questionnaire. I am sorry for the quality of the photo. It is little bit blurred. So please bear with this. Then next thing in the DFM evaluation is the handling analysis. Handling analysis is the thing like once you have defined the child part of the product, how it will be brought to the place of assembly, how easily. That means your part is such that it can be easily brought to the assembly station. It will be better while we are having a part which is easily like which is not having any issues or too much care required for handling. So the following describes the process employed for both manual and automated. So it is there for both manual or automated. It is irrespective of this. And handling problems are important because there can be some part which are critical with respect to operator safety. So they have to be taken extra care. Some part which are there like handling sensitive. I come across many part. I am looking after the electrical parts. So I come across many part which are handling sensitive. Even if it is falling from some height like 1 meter, the functionality of the part is gone. So such part requires special handling, and this is the point where like some part are having sharp edges. So you cannot bring the part as it is. You have to bring in a proper bin, and the operator PP equipment has to be there. And when handling is easy, it will also speed up the time, and you can design the process easily when there is no handling constraint for any part. So handling ratio. Okay, I forgot to mention. Okay, I forgot to mention the function analysis. Function analysis, how it is calculated, number of A component and divided by number of total number of components, multiply by 100. And coming to the handling ratio, the handling ratio is handling ratio is calculated sum of individual handling score by total number of A part. So we have to be careful while calculating. The handling score will be calculated based on the next slide, and total number of A part, that is the functional part. So the ratio less than 2.5 is considered to be good for handling. This is the basis for calculation of handling analysis. So you can see there are A, B, C, and D, 4 types of handling criteria. So basically, the photo is not clearly able to show, but I will just tell. Part A is related to size and weight of the part. If the part is very small, or it is convenient to handle, or it is heavy, or large and heavy, 2 persons are required. So accordingly, the score is increasing with the complexity. The handling difficulty, if the part is fragile, then it can tangle or there are sharp edges. And no handling difficulty means 0. So if your handling difficulty is high, the score will be high. Then orientation of the part, like it has to be assembled in some specific orientation only, or it has to be rotated, or some pre-tightening. So this type of thing is increasing. So overall your handling index will be A plus B plus C plus D. Higher the score, it is not better because it is increasing your ratio. Then assembly analysis. Assembly analysis or assembly ratio, it is the analysis after the product is brought to the station. How easily it will be able to assemble. How will be the tooling requirements? Will it be complicated? Will it be simple? And how will be the testing of the part? Will it be difficult testing, multiple stages? And for assembly analysis, there are three subcategories. How is the part gripping on the machine? How is the part insertion? And what are the secondary operations? So just to give some idea, gripping is the ease with which any part or assembly can be held from a feeding point up to insertion stage. Insertion is the relative ease or difficulty of carrying out each assembly task required to assemble. So if the gripping is easy, you can have less cycle time. If the insertion is easy, again it will lead to less errors. And secondary operation, like some auxiliary process, you have to pre-tighten, you have to do some welding after this one, you have to use adhesive. So try as much as to possible to avoid the secondary operation. And the assembly ratio is calculated by gripping cost plus insertion process cost plus secondary operation cost. So now you can see that the point has come towards the cost. How is the cost finally? Manpower, machine. Target is to have 2.5 assembly ratio of 2.5 less. This is the table. Again, I'm not going into deep, but as the complexity for gripping and insertion is increasing, the insertion index and the gripping index is increasing. You can see the category component has no surface for gripping. This type of component, it is having the highest ratio 2.5. When we see insertion, when the part is having self-locating insertion process, it is having the index of 1. And there is some kind of bending process or riveting, then because it has its own failure mode. When more process, then more failure mode you are adding, more time you are adding. So you have to add this A, B, C, D, E, F, and you get this insertion index. So this is the calculation basis for assembly. Now let us go with a simple example before we enter into our interesting topic of relevance in automotive industry. So this is the example of a pen, and we have to now do a DFMA of a pen. Functional and non-functional part has to be identified. So in this example, we can see the refill is the functional part because it is writing. The grip, this one part, and the cap, all these things are non-functional part. So we can see different companies do their cost cutting. Maybe they will eliminate this one, or they will have one single part. Refill is not removable. All the things are the different technique which different companies are using. Costly pen will have everything. Maybe 2 rupees pen will not have any part which is removable. One time use and throw. So if we calculate the design efficiency, number of functional part 1, and total part is 7, 6 plus 1. So the design is 14% efficient. So you can see how the company is going with this design. Maybe he will have more cost of this product, or he will have less market share, whatever it can be. So the DFMA sheet is calculated, functional analysis, handling analysis, and assembly analysis. So these are the parts which are listed in the column. Then the quantity, then the functional analysis, whether it is essential, non-essential. Handling analysis, as I said, A, B, C, D. The total is done. The total of handling analysis is this one. This is the sum of all this. Then the assembly analysis, the score is given for the insertion index, secondary index, gripping, and the total of all these things is given here. So you can make a DFMA table for any part design efficiency, handling ratio, assembly ratio. So then you can decide. Now I am at this stage. Now which stage I can go further? I can further reduce this. Can I make this 6.4 to 5? Can I go to 2.5? Can I increase the efficiency from 16% to 30%, 50%? So this can be done in any product. Now, coming to one interesting topic, which I have personally experienced. This goes back to my time of internship in Tata Motors, which was done during my college time in ADIT 8th semester. So this topic is very close to me because I have used it personally. And just to clear, this fundamental or DFMA is relevant in any industry. But since we are working in the automobile and mechanical industry, so we are giving this example. But this is a standard concept. So, and one more thing, this concept is used inline or along with the benchmarking methodology. So everyone must be aware of the benchmarking concept. Anyone can give any idea what is the benchmarking? Any student colleagues?
It benchmark means related to total performance of the material or any elements.
Okay. You are close but not exact. Anyone else? Okay. So just to give you one line overview of benchmarking, it is a comparison of the product with the competitor in the market to understand the features, their construction, and to implement their best practices in the market into our product. Of course, we should be clear that benchmarking doesn't mean copying. You cannot copy one part as it is because this will lead to IP issues, intellectual property. Okay. So what you are seeing here is the one benchmarking process. What I have done or what is shown in this picture. There are four models: A Star, Swift, Yaris, and Igo. This model, maybe some models were there in India, some were not here in India. This is of 2010. So we are taking one product, let us say headlight, and we are comparing the product. We are dismantling the product. We are comparing the different child parts of different models or different OEM itself. So, of course, these are the external aesthetic parts. So they will definitely not match. So we know that this part will not be looking same. But what we have to take is what material they are using, what is the weight of material, how are the processes of joining them? Are they using fasteners? Are they using some kind of adhesion or some internal parts? Whether are they combined? For example, bulb cap is not there. So why this bulb cap is there? Can we meet the function without this bulb cap? Then the functional part like bulb, what rating they are using? Can we reduce the rating if it is within the government guidelines? So these are the things which are the benchmarking topics. And once we are doing the benchmarking, then next thing is the DFMA. So we can calculate, okay, I go A Star, Swift, Yaris, total number of component, total number of A category functional, B category non-functional, design efficiency, handling ratio, assembly ratio. Then we can see which is the best one. So in this particular thing, we can see IGO model is the best because it is having the lowest number of parts, it is having the highest design efficiency, lowest handling ratio, then lowest assembly ratio. So we can think how we can make our product in line or what we say, getting some best practices from IGO model to improve our design, improve our processes, how we can make it easy. Of course, no one is going to share the design, no one is going to share how they made. but this is all the reverse engineering. This is the example of tail light. Similar way, we dismantle all the parts and then we see how simple the product is. Same, the function is same, tail light, but how simple one can make it, how complex the process one can have, and how simple other one can have. So in this one also we can see ICO. This model is doing good in terms of number of parts, or let us say something is good, one is good and one is bad. So in this one, the number of part is little high, 11, but the design efficiency is 81. Okay, so very high design efficiency, very low handling ratio. Assembly is little bit difficult, let us say, but then this is the trade-off which we have to do somewhere. This is the seat. So I remember one thing which during this thing, which I was surprised actually. So the number of parts which are there, since I was in Tata Motors, so I saw it. Tata Nano having the minimum number of parts as compared to any other. Like if you see i10, there are 200 parts, and if you see Nano, there are only 57 parts. So just see the number of principles of DFMA it would have used. So integrating the component functionality, removing the non-essential things. So all these things, like see the design efficiency is 23%, here the design efficiency is 35%. Of course, they may be in the different segment. Hyundai i10 is entry like premium entry level segment, and Nano is a very basic. But everything is like cost. So how it was made in 1 lakh? This was the method. The Nano vehicle was engineered, and it is, though it was not successful in market, but definitely it can be called engineering wonder, that the whole world would agree that making a car in 1 lakh. So there are many things which we can see that they were optimized. Even though it was the cheapest car, there were many scope for optimization when we do such kind of activity in DFMA and benchmarking. So this is the brake caliper example. This is the jack. Simple part like jack, even there is a scope. I remember it can reduce some 5 to 10 rupees from this part. This is the most like auxiliary part one would use once in a year, or one may never use. So still the OEM is supposed to give. So if you're saving the cost of 10 rupees, then you can imagine how much saving the company can do. So each and every part of a vehicle can be applied for this methodology, and the company can get saving which cannot be imagined. And this was the activity. Sorry, I can see some message, but like I'm in presentation mode, so I will come to any questions, like the presentation is about to finish. So we can see ideas generated. So these were after the DFMA methodology. Some seat were having side reinforcement for mounting the airbag, and some, like the best model was having some kind of press fitting. So this was saving the bracket cost, the assembly manufacturing cost, all the things. So this was like a presentation that okay, this can be done to reduce the cost of part and number of parts. So if we see Nano, there were 4 rivets, and there were some integrated rivets with base plate. So we can save the cost of 4 rivets. So this type of idea can come when we are working on design with DFMA methodology. So okay, I end my presentation here. I took some more time, like 10 minutes, but after this presentation, if there are any query with respect to methodology or any general query also, anyone are free to ask.
Any query from any participant?
which type of softwares nowadays are using for DFMA? Particular, sir, can you give some name?
Okay. So, as I said, DFMA basically is a tool which can be worked in Excel itself. But when I was browsing on the net, there are some tools which do this thing. Okay. So I feel personally that this is a simple tool which may not require a software, because what screenshot I showed you in the PPT, it is a Excel screenshot. So you just put the number values there based on the table and you can get your result. So this particular DFMA tool, not necessary that you have to use the software, but yes, I think there can be some things like for the ease of use, there can be some software, but I am not aware of the name of the software. But it is just like CPCPK. If you are using a CPCPK calculator, you can get the value by manual also, like by some tool also. And if you are doing the calculation manually, also you can get. So DFMA is a simple tool, I think. So at present, I don't know which software is that.
Any other query from any participant?
So whether if you are going in design function or if you are going in manufacturing function, you can think in this way. How? Because this will be a day-to-day problem when you're designing something. So the example are very simple, but it can be used in design domain, manufacturing domain. If someone is in costing, vendor development, so all these things also will be coming into picture.
Any other question? Okay. Okay, now we are closing this session. Mit, it was really a nice presentation, and I am really thankful to you that you are sparing your valuable time in Sunday also, because in industry actually Monday to Saturday very hectic schedule are there, and everybody are thinking of Sunday so for rest. But even on Sunday, I requested and you agree for delivering this kind of lecture. That is really good, and I am really thankful from my bottom of heart that you are, whatever we request, whenever we request, you agree and deliver a talk. Thank you very much, Mit.
Yeah, it is my pleasure to discuss and have a discussion with old faculty, college faculty and the student.
I'm also thankful for all participants being a part of this webinar, and I just send a message on text chat box for providing feedback and attendance. So all participants are requested to fill the same, and even if any query you can contact Meet Bhatt anytime. We'll have his email ID, contact number, everything. So
Any other query if you are interested to ask, like if you are in final semester, so you can ask
yes,
general query.
final semester can have a query maybe. They can communicate with Meet if they wish.
Sir, could we say DFMI is a proper technical subject, because in that cost is also concerned and some management part is also concerned with that. So is it a proper technical, or we can say economic part are also relevant to it?
It is a techno-commercial, I think. I think it is techno-commercial because the objective is to minimize the cost also. But as a side, what we say, byproduct, we are also getting quality, ease of operations. So neither it is 100% commercial, neither it is 100% technical, but the methodology is definitely technical. Though the objective is commercial, but the method of doing it, because we cannot ask a commerce person to come and decide the functionality of a part or do this. Okay, so the target maybe is to reduce the cost, but the second and third point of target will be definitely ease of operation, ease of assembly, and what we say, reliability, quality, because good to have a product which is having less part and same functionality.
Yes, sir. And one more thing, sir. There are two main topics, design and manufacturing. So is there any specific course or anything in which we can do both the things? Because nowadays, one student, if I'm talking personally, I will be interested in on particular one direction, either design or in manufacturing. But DFMS presents both the attributes. So is there any specific course in masters we can go for DFMA or anything else?
DFMA may not be only like a course, because DFMA is a methodology. You cannot have a master course, for example, in Six Sigma. Okay, so Six Sigma is a course maybe like a 6 month. So same way DFMA can be a course of, let us say, 1 month. Okay, but it is too much like a small domain. It is a tool, so you cannot have a mastering tool. You can have that tool certification. I think there can be some courses which will tell that you know DFMA. Second thing is design for manufacturing and assembly. It is not purely design. Yes, it is related to design, and it is asked that the tool should be used in design phase, but it is not purely design. For example, it is asking to have a CFT approach, cross-functional team approach. Let us say if only a design person is using the tool, he will not be able to utilize it 100% because he doesn't know what are the complication or difficulties in operation manufacturing. So this tool is not a thing that only design will use or only manufacturing will use. It is a CFT approach, like if you see APQP, Advanced Product Quality Planning. So Advanced Product Quality Planning is a concurrent engineering, like you are also working on quality, you are also working in manufacturing direction, and you are also working on the design. So this is a concurrent engineering approach where CFT comes into picture. But like you said, course in master, there are options, like if you want to do manufacturing processes, then you can do master. It is a broad domain. Then you can do product design masters. That is possible, but only for a tool master may not be possible. This tool was
Okay.
used. This tool was used for this Tata Motors Nano. So we can imagine that the OEMs are actually using this. So if you want to prepare something where you are interested, so if you are interested in design, you can go for Pro-E, CATIA design courses. Okay. If you are interested for production, you can go for quality Six Sigma or production systems, Toyota production system or something, industrial engineering concepts. All these things are there, production system. Yeah.
Any further query or questions? If someone like to ask, please. Okay. Meet now again, I am really thankful for your time and nice presentation. Now, as I already I have set time and it's now going to add, meeting will going to add within 5 minutes. So if any query from participant will entertain, otherwise we'll closing this session. Thank you, Mit.
Okay, thank you everyone.